is a civil war brewing in the United States of America. Where are the guys leaping over this barrier and punching these disgusting Antifa scum?
They want to stifle free speech. They want to put tags on the heads of the people they disagree with and literally suffocate them.
They do not want conversation, and they have openly stated they want war.
They want to punch Lauren Southern in the face, a 21-year-old girl, because she disagrees.
August 11th, 2017, Charlottesville, Virginia. Hundreds of torch-bearing extremists demonstrate openly in favor of white nationalism on the campus of the University of Virginia. The next day, violence erupts in Charlottesville streets. 32-year-old Heather Heyer is murdered by a white supremacist. White supremacy in America is nothing new. From the KKK to the nativism that inflamed Donald Trump's presidential campaign, hatred of non-whites has long been a powerful strain in American politics. But today's white nationalist movement has a more recent, more specific history. It was forged in the online culture wars over the last several years. For the past few months, we've investigated this history, hearing from the so-called alt-right and also from their adversaries, the anti-fascist activists known as Antifa, who have responded to the white supremacist threat with tactics up to and including violence. How did this happen? How did a repugnant, maligned ideology come out from the shadows and onto the streets of a college town?
The alt-right has particular origins in online video gaming and online message board culture, where there's been kind of a social capital for trolling your opponents, intentionally using inflammatory rhetoric, targeting and harassing an individual to make your peer group laugh. The online trolling culture made the jump from the pages of the internet to the real world really in February 2017. That's when Milo Yiannopoulos, who is a right-wing provocateur.
Feminism is a mean, vindictive, spiteful, nasty, man-hating philosophy.
Went to Berkeley, and there was a riot of left-wing activists, of people who identify as anti-fascist or Antifa.
These are student protesters, some anarchists from what I can gather, and trying to breach the building right now.
So I was evacuated by my security detail and by the police tonight from UC Berkeley. UC Berkeley, of course, being the home of the free speech movement.
And the ensuing national controversy set off a storm of anger on the internet.
These scum of the earth will beat women and sucker punch innocent, peaceful people, and they'll convince themselves it is for the greater good.
We have to form our own kind of a paramilitary street protection force.
People who identify with this trolling culture suddenly felt victimized and saw this as an opportunity to continue to go to Berkeley and protest, claiming the mantle of free speech.
The problem is, there is a culture of censorship on the left. I mean, I'm on the left and I can see that. One of the typical preoccupations of this style of politics is an obsession with being hurt and being damaged by words and in need of protection against offensive ideas. The definition of hateful speech has been expanded to a completely absurd degree. So then when people on the right started to say, you know, we have this culture of political correctness, I mean, they've been saying that for a long time, but suddenly a lot of people who would never have been sympathetic to that idea became more sympathetic.
Folks who might have found this type of language or behavior ironic at first have begun to merge with genuine white supremacist groups and genuine right-wing extremist groups, including violent militias.
The culture of the fun of being un-PC, it turned the far right from something retrograde and sort of, you know, certainly unfashionable. It turned it into a youth subculture. The particular character of the far right as it has emerged this time around has to be understood in terms of the online culture wars, because that is where it came from. This is really a battle of subcultures. If anyone who is involved in this kind of culture of kind of anti-PC trolling still thinks that it's a joke, I think those people don't get that it really isn't a joke anymore.
One of the rising stars of the alt-right is Nathan D'Amigo, founder of the white nationalist organization Identity Europa. D'Amigo, who was one of the organizers of the white supremacist rally in Charlottesville, gained his fame within the alt-right through political violence at one of the Berkeley free speech rallies.
We are in the middle of a culture war. There are individuals who see themselves as the defenders of this priest class, who hold the dogma of our contemporary society with a religious fervor. These are the same individuals who would be burning people at the stake several hundred years ago. They like to call themselves Antifa or anti-fascist. These are left-wing, violent, anarchic terrorists. These are individuals who are now freaking out because they are losing control. They can feel their power slipping from their grasp. These are the defenders of the establishment. They like to portray themselves as victims. However, every institution in our society reflects their values. The values of anti-whiteism, institutionalized anti-whiteism.
What are you advocating? Would you want a white-only state?
I would like a state that would lead towards something like that. Yes, that is the ideal that we believe in, is a place for people of European heritage.
The alt-right's enemies, Antifa, are protective of their anonymity, fearing reprisal by both right-wing militants and by the state. How did you get involved in radical politics?
I got involved in the 90s through the music scene, and at that time there was a large chunk of us that were into punk rock music, and there was a subset of that culture that decided they wanted to be neo-Nazis or far-right. Back in the 90s, it was very clear because they had bomber jackets and they had the boots and they had the skinheads and they're easily identifiable, and they were very quick to have their insignias, whereas today they've managed to blend in. They like to make you very innocuous and try to blend it in with ideas of free speech and free assembly and things like that. But it's, at the end of the day, it's still the same message. Despite whether now today they have nice haircuts and polos, it's the same message as they had back in the 80s and 90s when they were wearing bomber jackets and had skinheads.
Another folk hero of the alt-right is Kyle Chapman, also known as Bass Stickman. Like D'Amigo, Chapman became a celebrity on the far right through political violence amplified on social media.
We are in a war, people. This isn't a game. We are in a war.
Does everybody know about Bass Stickman? There's a fellow in Berkeley, Kyle. Kyle's his name. He's facing several charges, including assault with a deadly weapon and rioting. There was a pro-Trump rally in Berkeley. There were people on both sides in full, regalia. I don't know what you call it. They had knee pads, shin pads. Bass Stickman had on a gas mask, eyeglasses to protect themselves from Antifa, their pepper spray attacks, and he had a flagpole with an American flag on it. So they went and they met into an open field and engaged in battle.
The second battle at Berkeley, I broke my hand. I detached my bicep from my humerus, completely knocking out an Antifa punk.
They're showing up armed. They're showing up with shields. In other places, in open carry states, they're showing up packing as much heat as they possibly can. In Berkeley, they conceal their knife just enough to walk by the police, if they even have to conceal it to walk by the police. Anytime in this country that you actually start to have some advances around human rights being led by Black and brown people, then you have the concurrent backlash from the elements of white power. And that's both white power, white supremacists who are in the state house and their street wing. So some of this, I would say, is actually backlash to social gains. And then at the same time,
you have someone in the White House who is very clearly saying, do whatever you want, take it as far as you want, I've got your back, I'm on the same program, we have the same goals.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
And people very clearly are hearing that. I mean, they are saying they're hearing it. They're saying, this is our time. It's time to go for it. Trump's got our back. This is when we have to really wage our stand. And they are making no bones about saying that this is their time for trying to incite and build a race war.
I believe these people have targeted whites specifically. The very progenitors of the Western civilization are white people, and we have been targeted for destruction. Antifa is a perfect example of white guilt run amok. These are all white kids, and all they do is talk shit about white people. Every college now has academic courses that teach you about white privilege. And they hit me with it over and over again through junior high and high school, how white people are responsible for slavery and they got the boots on the neck of everybody else, and it was just shame, 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 shame on you for being white. You become a self-hating, ashamed white person. And then you no longer wish to protect your culture, civilization, because all you associate it with is death, destruction, slavery, imperialism, colonialism.
I mean, people are totally inspired by you. We're pushing back the Antifa and the liberals and the nut bars and the
They built
commies and
up
the
this
Marxists.
huge alternative media infrastructure, massive Twitter following, their own YouTube channels.
What's your name?
Nathan D'Amigo.
All right, well, you're sort of famous now.
Apparently.
They're trying to become celebrities based off this new platform that they found, whether it be YouTube or these social media platforms that they have. So these are our gamers, which is why we're seeing them showing up dressed up in armor and with United States flags on as capes, and they come with crazy outfits.
It's definitely reflecting the gaming culture, the weird, geeky subculture element to it, like that, you know, mainstream audiences are totally baffled by.
They come to be recognized and get new names like Base Stickman or Base Spider-Man or whatever they come up with based on their outfits that they create.
Look at Eastern Europe. Look at Poland, Russia. They are strong. They are unabashedly proud to be Polish, proud to be nationalists, and they are Christians and Catholics, and they are willing to die to defend their culture. One Muslim steps wrong in one of those countries, and every Polish, Ukrainian, Czech man on the streets will put that son of a bitch in check in 2 seconds. That's how it has to be here.
I just wanted to say something about violence and nonviolence and hate speech and free speech. Free speech, the First Amendment, was made to protect us against the state. It wasn't made for the state to be protected. It wasn't made so that the right wing or those that defended the state could determine who had free speech and who didn't.
The term free speech is being taken and twisted and manipulated by the alt-right as a cover for hate speech.
They're using people that do really care about free speech and their right to vote for Trump, and using them as pawns in their game to recruit for actual fascist organizing.
There's no government interference. There's no censorship. They're not being prevented from having or expressing these ideas. They have plenty of well-funded platforms to do so. What they're actually facing is community consequences for hate speech and trying to incite violence against members of the community. And honestly, it would be much scarier if they were being allowed to do that without any response.
What brought you out here? Like, how'd you get involved in this?
Originally, you know, I was kind of a part of the survivalist community. I've always been big on that. You know, I voted for Obama the first term, but I started really getting into politics, you know, the older I got, and I'm seeing my friends down here getting work. You know, they're not able to have their meetings, and Coulter's getting canceled. That's not right, man. We need equal sides, equal conversations.
You've got to understand that Antifa and anarchists and BAM, you have to try to put yourself in their mind. From their perspective, watch their videos. This is not my words, this is theirs. From their perspective, they are in a civil war. They are beginning a revolution. In their minds, that's their outlook.
You know, we show up to these things in Seattle, Portland, and here, you know, in Berkeley, we get rocks thrown at us, we get, you know, M80s thrown at us. We can't just have a conversation. We can't have just a meeting like this where we can just talk. We've heard about guns, we've heard about, you know, IED type explosives. One of our guys gets killed at one of these rallies, it is on. I can't tell you what some of these guys might do. Me personally, I'm not going to do anything, but some of these guys here, they'll pick up arms, they'll move out, and you know, I think we're on the verge of a civil unrest, if that makes sense. This whole Twitter war, this whole internet war, this war of words and physical violence needs to stop.
That if it continues, somebody's going to die in these streets.
We are in a moment where democracy in this country it's on pretty dangerous footing.
We have to speak out against the war on whites.
If we don't shut these events down now, they will only get worse. And there will only be more victims, but there'll be victims of when these kids get drunk and then they go out on a Friday night and attack same-sex couple, or they attack a minority. You know, that's what it will be. That's what it will translate into.
Whites as a group have done far more for this world than any other group, and I will not be ashamed to be white here, now, or ever.
You know, street battles between groups on the left and the right have a pretty bad track record. I mean, before the rise of the Nazis, this is exactly what was happening.
You must sacrifice, you must bleed, and some of you might have to, at some point, die. We have lit a fire in the hearts of Western men all over this world. We are ushering in a return of the warrior to Western society. Our men are waking up. They are boots on the ground. They are hitting the streets, and they are willing to bleed for this society, this civilization, and this country. What do we stand for? Freedom. What do we bleed for? And what will we die for? That's what I'm talking about, people.